So, when I was preparing for this sermon, I actually ended a little bit early, so I was able to do a whole bunch of really cool things. As my usual kind of intense PowerPoint goes, as you guys remember, I developed that, the Lord provided for that, and then I actually provided for all these different sermon illustrations that you see on the side here. So I was really excited. I was like, okay, this is a lot. The theme was going to be covenants. This idea that God is a God of covenants, that when he presents himself, he actually talks about how he is. So when he says things like, I am the God as I was with Abraham, as I was with Jacob, he's saying, I'm God, but I'm a particular type. He's form-fitting the type of God that he is. When he's revealing himself to David, he's form-fitting himself in a particular type of God. A God that is pure love, and if this purely loving God is loving you, and you receive it correctly, you will not have any fear. He continues to describe himself to us in all these different ways. And one of the ways that was just absolutely amazing to me and gave me this deep understanding was a covenantal God. The most basic form of covenants is a little different than we're even used to. We kind of see it in marriage, but most of the secular world has kind of destroyed that. It's a contract. It's, I will be what I should be to the extent that you are, or I perceive that you are what you say you should be. But a covenant is I will be what I should be regardless of whether you are what you should be or not. That is the type of God that we serve in a covenantal relationship with us. And I had a whole bunch of different things I was planning, and I was excited. There's a really cool part of this sermon. I was really close to cutting up this hamster in half. And it would make sense if I went through it. I had some animal crackers. I know animal crackers. All these things. But I think we have to be out of here at 12, right? We have to be out of here at 12. And I have 5 after. And I'm long-winded, so... What was crazy is, and maybe next time, what was crazy is God was showing me so much this week that I thought I had this great revelation. And granted, it is a deep revelation. It's a profound revelation. It's an understanding that flows throughout Scripture, that this God that does all these things with us, as an ancient covenant would do, he literally did them all with us in some way. To the point that I literally have a physical scar on my body that correlates with how they would have made scars back in the day. These things that literally blew my mind, that once I understood this, I could see pretty much all of Scripture through a more deeper lens of this God of the covenant. That I'm no longer looking at things of throwing it way on one side of grace, of grace means you have the license of sin so you can sin and do whatever you want, versus the throw of law of there's so many rules and regulations, I can't help, and I'm imperfect, and there's just too much. Right? There's all these things, and God comes through with this perfect covenant that he does with himself in this amazing, beautiful way, and says, I have found the perfect balance of all those things, and that is the God that you serve, and that is me. I am the perfect balance. I am the perfect sacrifice. I am the perfect provider. I'm the perfect giver of a covenant. I'm the perfect fulfiller of that exact same covenant. And all these beautiful, beautiful things all throughout Scripture. And this just hit me. And it was just so fascinating. But what's crazy is I was sitting yesterday with some guys, and I was asking them some questions. And part of me was thinking, probably because they don't really get it. Because they don't get this whole covenant thing. So they might not get this. And I started asking them questions. They maybe didn't answer the exact same way someone understanding covenant would answer. But they were answering them correctly. Because God is like a multifaceted diamond. Right? Depending on how you twist, it's just another beautiful light on the wall. Another beautiful rainbow. Another beautiful. But it's all him. He's a God of covenant. He's also a God of relationship. He's a God of love. He's a God of justice. How do they balance? Well, understanding covenant gets you to understand this, but sometimes you don't have to understand all of it. And so it's just interesting to me with possibly the sermon that I did the most preparation for, almost burning down our apartment trying to make this really cool fake covenant. Thank you, honey. That I think what he's teaching is it's okay if you don't have all the knowledge and understanding. It's okay if you don't have the crazy divine revelation that if sometimes, and I think we spoke about this a while back, is sometimes like the blind man who then could see, he says, listen, I don't know all these things you're asking me. A blind man who's healed by Jesus comes up to the religious leaders and they start questioning him and saying all these things to him. And he's like, listen, I don't know. All I know is I once was blind and now I see. I can't answer all your questions. But the man who saved me, the man who healed me, we need to go learn about him. And so I feel like sometimes with this, and this is something that I struggle with, and I don't know if anyone else does, there's so much knowledge there that sometimes I miss it. This whole love thing, the love casting out fear, and that so many times during this week, God is saying like, hey, everything you do without love, it's nothing. Without me, it's nothing. So if I don't have him, because he is love, if I'm not loving, I don't have him in what I'm doing. So, and it's really tough to kind of get to that point. If he is love, and what I'm doing is not loving, I don't have him in what I'm doing. And if he says anything apart from me means nothing, anything apart from love means nothing, he's trying to get a point at it. I could have, right? I could speak in tongues of angels, right? I could give you all the divine mysteries, but without love, I have nothing. And so I do have a lot of these great things that God's provided and God's put into me. But without love, because there's been times this week I haven't been loving. There's been times this week that I have succumbed to the enemy. And I'm sorry that my wife's been the butt of some of that. Because I'm a butt sometimes. But it's to get up and just keep pushing forward. And so I wish I wanted to go through this great thing that I thought was great, and God said, no, actually I'm going to do something else. And I said, well, you're the boss. And I trust you with that. And so some of this might not make sense to you, and that's okay. The simple fact that God is a God of covenant, maybe that'll make you hungry to do your own search, and you'll get a deeper revelation than I ever could have provided up here. But I'm not going to go through that. I feel like the Lord is teaching me so many things that sometimes I don't have the love. But the love is so important. And the love is why he came down and sacrificed himself. The love is why he did what he did. The love should be the motivator for what we do. And if not, we need to ask God to help change that. And I've had to ask God for that. One thing is, what would bring you glory when I'm trying to make decisions? How can I show you love? How can I show others love? When you can answer those things in the direction that you're going, you're probably going in the right direction. Part of the covenant is when you make a covenant, you have a memorial meal. That means I am in you and you are in me. We sang a song about that, right? Your abilities, your love, your life, it's in me. Because when you make a covenant with somebody, you're saying, all that I have is in you. You become like me. Actually, the attributes be reflected on each other. You change each other's names. You do all these different beautiful things. Because part of that, taking that covenant, is the memorial meal. So part of that we do in church. It says, do this in remembrance of me, right? Do this often. So today I felt like we should have communion today. Sometimes people don't. Do you know that and I'm not picking on Catholics, but a lot of Catholics don't have knowledge of why they do what they do. A lot of times they'll simply ask, and they don't know. Well, same thing as us. We don't really know what we do. But just specifically with communion, because they have communion almost every week, I believe. Did you know that statistically, Catholics get healed more often than Protestants or Spirit-filled Christians through communion? Did you know that? Even though they don't, and I don't, I'm not saying I have full knowledge, but even though we may do something we don't fully understand, God still comes in and does what he says. Because whether I am to the extent of what I should be or not, he still is who he is. So when he says, take this in remembrance of me, and you take it, even if you don't fully understand it, now you should try to learn that he still is who he is. So whether or not I can explain all this, whether or not I have the knowledge, he still is who he is. And I'm trusting that he will speak to you today in a way better than I ever could have. Because it's not about what I could bring to you. And I need to be humble about that. And, sometimes I think, like, this is good stuff. Come on, God, nice. But it's all him. The word is him. So if he wants to switch it up, he wants to do something else, I'm okay with that. And I just, if you could forgive me, I'm sorry that I kind of had my own plan, and as things were going, I was a little frustrated back there thinking, I have to get this out, and then God's just bringing me peace. It's okay. This is my service. It's not yours. Right? Who are we worshiping for? I think I said that here. And worship went long. I said, are you worshiping for you or for him? No, I'm eating my own words. Is this service so that I could tell you something or so God could? And if God decides not to use me, and he decides not to use me, if I keep on rambling, we'll go after 12:05. So, but I would like to invite the worship leaders back up and take this moment. However you understand communion, try to take it a deeper level. Whatever your understanding is, so focus on that understanding. And then ask God, God, give me more. Just directly from you. And so I just invite you guys to partake in that one element of the covenant of him coming into you in whatever way you know. And then some.